Keys to Longevity, next on Call with the Prairie Doc.
Good evening and welcome to On Call with the Prairie Doc. One of life's greatest mysteries is how long and how well each of us will live. Will we be the octogenarian with the joy of grandchildren and great-grandchildren surrounding us, or the unfortunate soul who falls victim of an accident or disease? Are there common traits found in those who live a long and healthy life that we can use to extend our own lives? Tonight we discuss longevity, living well, and we answer your questions on that age-old topic. Okay, today we have another Prairie Doc quiz question, which concerns healthy living. So listen carefully. Of the following lifestyle decisions, which is the most effective in enhancing longevity? A, the proper low-carbohydrate diet. B, everyday exercise. C, daily vitamin D. Call in or email your answer to the show starting now. Viewers who call in the correct answer will be entered into a drawing to win a signed copy of A Picture of Health. This book was written by me with accompanying photographs by Dr. Judith Peterson. We'll announce the answer and the winner at the end of the show. We answer your questions as they're called in or sent to us via Facebook or email. Call in your questions to 1-888-376-6225 or send us an email. In the Yeager Media Center studio tonight, I'm joined by Dr. Mike Heisler of the Sanford School of Medicine and Dr. Tad Jacobs of Avera Health. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
It's great to be here, Rick.
All right. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. Actually, I'd love to hear these first, before the med school times, a little bit. What happened to you? You knew Bobby Kennedy.
I think that's a stretch, but I worked for Bobby Kennedy, which now tells you how old I am.
Yes.
You know, back in 1968 when he was running for president.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. We were having a discussion with med students, or soon to be, we hope to be med students,
yes,
about how we ended up in medicine and why we chose this profession. And I said that for me, it really came down to a question of trying to find some way to live a life, talking about living, living well. I wanted to live a life of purpose and of service and allowed me to contribute.
So you were either going to be a monk.
Yeah, so for me, that's right. So I went to the University of Notre Dame. I came up in a Catholic theological tradition, and the idea of service was part of it. And so I really got to a turning point where I had to either choose priesthood, and not just the priesthood, but monastic life as a Cistercian Trappist monk, or an active form of theology, which for me was medicine.
Active theology.
Yeah, I mean, I went to my med school interview and the person said, "Why do you want to be a physician?" And I said, "Well, do you want me to answer that with the usual answer, or do you want me to really answer that?" And he said, "No, really answer the question." I said, "All right, well, for me, it came down to the question of being a monk or being a physician. And then the rest of it goes from there."
Yeah, so you have a mission, you have a direction in your life. I think that's one of the major reasons you're going to live a very long time.
Well, not only me, but the data is really clear about that. People who are purposeful, who feel valuable and useful and contributing, not tossed aside, not forgotten, and who are of service to other people, they not only live longer, but they live better. And that's just true over and over and over again, and I'm sure you see that all the time.
Amen to that, Mike.
So you were going to be a minister too, Tad.
Yeah,
Tell us about
something.
that.
Well, let me first say this, though. I happen to know that both of you guys are the same age, right? And I think you both look great for your age.
Thank you very much.
Say that.
Old.
You old guys.
You old guys.
No, I mean, actually very similar to Michael's experience. I really started out on a path towards ministry, thinking about the spiritual aspect of dealing with people and how that would give purpose to my life. But in the end, very much like you found that when you first in biology started working on that frog, how cool that was. I too said, man, I love science, and realized that really there's a lot of spirituality in medicine. And so really it's the best of both worlds, really.
It's an opportunity to serve.
It is.
Yeah, it really is. So you were going to be a Baptist minister, or?
Actually, at the time, I went to a Presbyterian college out in Western Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I knew this about you because whenever we would have medical meetings together, because Flandre and Brookings kind of have meetings together, you would say the prayer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, okay, Tad's turn. Well, let's bow our heads in prayer. Okay, so I knew that there was that part of Tad. But the topic tonight is about living long. And I mean, part of that was from the book by Buettner about blue zones. And he's not a scientist, but he talked about areas where people live the longest. And people gravitated to that book right away because, and National Geographics have picked him up because they like what he does and how he does it. And he said that it's not only Sardinia where the original research was done and where they use the blue circles to say this is the area on the island where people live the longest. Why is that? But he took it to all sorts of places, and he has his answers. And I'd ask you, and you sort of answered already in one sense that you think that at least one part of it has to be purposeful living.
Oh, I think that's true. And it's interesting. I'd be willing to bet you that the people who are listening and watching tonight would say to you, the real issue here isn't living long, it's living well. And if you do studies and you ask people, do you want to live well and as healthy as you can for as long as you can, or is your primary goal to accumulate as many years as you can? Almost every person will tell you, I don't want to live to be 100 years old and not be able to take care of myself. I want to live well and vibrantly as long as I can. And I'm saying this from the perspective of a critical care physician.
Right.
It's really important to put this in context. I work in an ICU where we deal with people with multiple serious illness. And the question that comes up, in fact, you and I have talked about this a lot,
yes,
is how do you address the issues of end of life? And most people really don't want to continue living on just for the sake of living if they can't live well.
Right.
So the question I think for us tonight isn't so much how can I live the longest, it's how can I live the best.
Yeah.
Right.
I really think that's what we're talking about.
And what gives you meaning. So I'd give you this example. One time, as you know, I live on the farm north of Flandre. And so this goes back years ago, but I had a very close neighbor and a very good friend who was also a patient of mine named Bud. And I was coming home and I saw Bud out in the field, just kind of walking the field, and he was being fields, and he was pulling weed here and pulling a weed there. And so I stopped, and I enjoyed visiting with him. So I walked over, and what are you doing? He says, Doc, he said, I'm just out here, and he said, I love this time of year. It's so beautiful out here in the country, and I get to see the fruits of my labor of putting in this crop. And frankly, he said, most people don't enjoy pulling weeds, but I actually enjoy pulling these weeds. And for me, I love being out here doing this. It gets me a little exercise too. And at that time, he was in his 80s. And so that was meaning for him. That was meaningful. Yeah. Simple. Doesn't have to be complicated.
There's a biblical thing with that pulling weeds too, isn't there? And I can certainly say that the seeds land on proper.
How you sow the seeds and where you sow it. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, but we're talking about farmers who savor their jobs and they love their jobs. That's why the farmers around here. I mean, this is a blue zone. In fact, the longevity is greatest in this region, like Minnesota, right here in Minnesota, western Minnesota and eastern South Dakota, Flandre, Brookings. There is great longevity here. Maybe it's because the young people all left and there's old people still here. But I don't think that's it. There's great longevity here. Maybe it's just the genetics too. I don't know.
In part, it certainly is genetics. But I think it's we've talked earlier about stress and how stress plays into the quality of your life as you regardless of how old you are, right? And so I think. Some folks really handle stress very well. They don't let it get them down, and I don't know whether it's geographic or whether it's just the rural nature of the folks that are around here, but they seem to adjust to that pretty well.
There's some other things too that I think are responsible for this. People in this area live in community.
They live in a community.
They live in community. They are a part of a community. They have friends that they've had for many, many years. They're part of a cooperative. They have the same church. They live near their families, not uncommonly. unlike people who live in large cities. A lot of people have grown up here. They've spent their whole life here. They went to the high schools nearby. They are rooted in this place.
Yes.
They also work outdoors. They understand the movement of nature, of life. And I know I'm sounding philosophical here, but it's a real predictor for living well and living long. I think this business of community and having relationships, not just your personal relationships, which are crucial, but having a community that's important to you, that you give to and receive from, is really, really important. And I think that's unique to the Northern Plains.
Part of why I left Atlanta, and I had a great job in Atlanta. I was teaching there. I loved it. I mean, they liked me, I thought. But
Really?
Maybe they didn't. I thought that. I was
thinking that Yankee.
Reality check here.
So, but I came back to South Dakota because my friends didn't rotate so much. There was a rotating friendship. I'd develop a friendship and then they'd move. And you develop another friendship and then they'd move. I mean, pretty soon you get burned out on new friends because then they're gone. Around here, you're stuck with them. You make some buddies, and by golly, you grow old with them. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Well, we both were in Atlanta. We were both at Emory at one point, amazingly enough, and we came home as soon as we could, once our kids were out of high school, because we wanted to be back with our family. My wife's family is here, and our longtime good friends are here. And then there's this other thing about stress. In Atlanta, it took me an hour and 30 minutes to drive from my town out east of Atlanta into Emory. Here, when I drive into town here, I drive down a long country road. It's 18 miles. It takes me about 22 minutes. And I might be the only car the entire time. And half the time when there's another car, I know the person in the other car.
Yeah,
It's perfect.
Yeah, and that's part of why we live well in the Northern Plains. And you can't stop on the roads around here in the winter and not have the first car that goes by you stop and make sure you're okay.
It's that doggone this thing.
It
It's
is.
amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I pulled over because my car was doing something in a 20 below zero on the highway, and a big truck and 3 cars stopped to make sure I was okay. It was 20 below.
So what's that about? That's about feeling connected and being part of a community and being
nurtured,
needed.
being nurtured,
And being able to give back as well.
Yeah, the nurturing back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think all three of us could probably relate to this. I mean, the patients that do the best, even in critical situations, are the patients that are surrounded by people who love them, who have good spirituality, and just have a lot of support. And those that are very much alone in the world, whether they're alone spiritually or whether they're alone physically, just don't seem to do as well over time.
It's not to say that some of them don't do
right,
well.
for
I mean, there's people who do well, but there is something to be said about the community of family and the surrounding love that is there. We have just before our next break, we have just a few minutes. But I was interested in what you've been doing with Avera, because you're part of your whole thing has to do with helping doctors to keep them from burning out. And the Mayo Clinic data on stress and burnout and so on and so forth is very interesting. And just before I go any further, we just had an animal-human connection burnout show with Russ Daly, and one of the questions I'd ask him later after the show, and I wanted to ask, animals die from stress. Sure. I mean, you stress your animal just a little bit, too much cold or too much, and then they're gone.
Sure.
What about humans?
Well, I mean, it's the same physiology, right? So, if you have stress long enough, your heart rate goes up, your respiratory rate goes up, your immune system gets suppressed, and you just don't do very well. And so that certainly plays out in humans just like it does in our animal friends. But I guess relative to the issue of burnout, there really is an epidemic out there, Rick, that is concerned, and that is physicians are being pushed more today than they ever have been. A lot of it, unfortunately, is doing stuff that clinically is not really nurturing to us. Computer, EMR, regulation, and so forth. And so really the percentage of docs that are experiencing burnout across the nation is pushing 60-some%. So we're trying to address that, recognize it, educate it, and then try to deal with the upstream things that we can do to help prevent it.
Right. We'll get back to that. I want to get back to that. Exercise, exercise, exercise. It's one of the most effective medicines that we can prescribe. Implementing this great medicine into your daily routine may bring surprising results.
I wouldn't say I've changed my routine. It's better to say that I actually started a fitness routine. My wife has been a runner for the 30 years that I've known her, marathons, half marathons, and I've never been much of a runner. I'm a dog walker. But as I was losing weight beginning in August, my energy level was really going up and up and up, and just started doing a little running with my wife. And she suggested that I do the Hobo Day 5K here in town. That was back in October, and I did it. I probably walked a third of it, and I was really huffing and puffing, and it was quite a strenuous event for me, but I did it. I might have caught the bug a little bit, and soon after that I went out to Colorado to our place out there to close up the family cabin, and met up with my son, and we decided to go for a hike up to a lake at just under 12,000 feet that I never thought I'd get up there ever. I mean, it was quite a hike, and you know, by golly, I did all right. So since that time I've done 2 or 3 other 5Ks. I've done a half marathon. I'm going to be doing another half marathon here in a couple weekends, and really done well in those half marathons. You know, I'm running about a 10-minute, 9-minute and 30-second pace, which for a 57-year-old guy is pretty darn good. I went back out to Colorado last weekend and to do a preparatory climb of a mountain. So this is a practice mountain. I climbed Twin Sisters Peak, which is 11,400 feet. And did really well in deep snow. I'm ready right now to do it. I'm just waiting for the snow to melt off Long's Peak, and we're going to go do it. Well, I got a family that really is behind my motivation. I don't know if I'd be able to do it without their encouragement and support and guidance. So my wife especially, but all of my kids and my son-in-law, they're into this as much as I am. I mentioned I did a half a marathon a few weeks ago. Well, I ran side by side with my wife throughout the whole thing, and that was pretty special, and just that made it extra fun that day. For me, it was important just to start. I mean, deep down in your mind, you know that it's going to be best you got to make a change. If you're happy with where you are, then maybe you don't. But I logically, you know, it's just a change that I had to do. So that's one thing, is making a change. Change is good. So make a change for the better. But then the other key aspect for me after that was setting this goal and this mutual promise that I had with my son, and then therefore the rest of the family, that I was going to do this particular event that's coming up, and we've all stuck to that. Now what happens after that? If I get off the mountain, that'll be another thing, but I think just climb another mountain of one sort or another, then maybe that's a half a marathon, or maybe that's a long hike of something, or what have you, but it's another goal.
Thank you, Kevin. That's a great story. I love his climbing a mountain. And it really was a mountain to get started again, because he was a little roly-poly and absolutely sedentary. And I mean, a brilliant teacher, researcher, leading research at SDSU. And now he's a convert into a regular exercise program. But motivating people is a real good question. But let's just talk about the three of us. What do we do to stay well? I'm going to start with you, Tad.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I am definitely an outdoors person. So the more that I can do in the outdoors, the better. So I stay active on the farm. I do a lot of hiking. I do a lot of hunting. I walk when I can. I used to run quite a bit, but I don't do that so much anymore because my knees started to hurt. So I stay active in that regard. The other thing I do just in terms of relaxation is music, really. I enjoy playing the guitar, I enjoy singing, and so that is very relaxing to me. And sometimes it's just listening to good music.
So when do you perform?
Church from time to time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Yeah. Mike, what do you do? You're a bicyclist. Is what
Yeah, I mean, to make it overly simple, I do two things. I ride a bike a lot, and I try to engage in service. And people say to me, well, what do you mean by service? Why do you do service? And I say to them, because I'm selfish. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, because we all know that you get way more back than you give. I was talking to my nephew this past week, and I said to him, it's an amazing thing, but it's really true. Every person in my life, this is really true, every person in my life that's of real importance to me, mentors, teachers, friends, my wife, my closest friends, every one of them I've met because of service, having met them somehow engaged in service. That's not surprising. You pre-select people with the same value systems.
Yeah, I suppose
so.
It is.
Service, and it's rewarding, it's fulfilling to me. It makes me feel good. And then biking, about the biking part.
Yeah, and your recent biking trip from Seattle to Sioux Falls.
And we're not talking about short little bike rides.
No, let's hear about that. How many other guys?
Well, the Seattle,
gals?
Guys and gals. So as you know, this because of the hospitals we are involved with in Ecuador. We've talked about that before. And we're trying to raise money to pay for them. So one of the ways we do that is we get on bikes and start riding long distance and get people to help, pledge. So this past June, we left Seattle on June 19th, and we got to Sioux Falls on the 4th of July. And we crossed the Cascades and the Rockies.
There's a few mountain ranges there.
We climbed 50,000 feet, and we rode 1,500 miles, and we got here on the 4th of July.
Wow, so that
was fun.
Unbelievable. How many miles a day?
75 to 80. That wasn't the issue. The issue is that the prevailing winds at that time of the year are supposed to be from the west. 17 of 19 days we had headwinds. And in South, I think I've told you this before. People say, well, how do you live in South Dakota and climb 50,000 feet? And I said, I've got a little secret. I ride headwinds as much as I can. So the headwinds across South Dakota were impressive. So yeah, a lot of biking. Wow. What do you do?
I run. I'm a runner. And that's one of the joys that I do because it's fun. I mean, I do it because, I do it because it relieves the stresses that I have. And then I'm done with the run. I've forgotten the anger or the frustration or whoever zapped you or the troubles that you're worried about. They seem to be a lot less. And I walk 1 mile every single day, Monday through Friday, down to Cook's Kitchen where I do my writing and preparing for this show. And then that 1 mile plus 3 days a week of running probably 5 to 7 miles a day time. But also I play the guitar and I really enjoy it. And on Wednesday nights I've got a couple of guys who are playing and singing with me now.
Still do barbershop too?
We sung barbershop too. I love barbershop. I've got a group that I sing on Tuesday nights and we go sing for people who are in need of a hopeful spirit. And so it's something like 15 to 25 people, and we sing a cappella hymns. Mostly, we'd sing Muslim songs if we knew them. If we had a Muslim patient, we would sure do it. Sure. But we go into their homes, and they love it, and we love it. I mean, that's a gift that's a joyful thing.
Sure, I was just thinking, Rick, I mean, when we just listen to what we do, I mean, key to living long or living well really is staying as active as you possibly can. And then engaging in something that's meaningful to you, as Mike said, and something that has purpose. And it really can be as simple as those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, we can get burned out at our jobs and come home and we'll sing for somebody who's in need, and then go for a run, and life is great. So, but burnout, 60% of the doctors are burning out because they're asked to do things that they're not wanting to do.
True.
And I think that's got to change, don't you think?
Well, I mean, we all went into the profession because we want to try to help people and help people to get well and stay well and to live long and live well. And so the more that we're not able to do those things or spend the majority of our time doing those things, I think just adds increased stress to that job. And so what's proven is that physicians who aren't well adjusted in that regard, the care that, first of all, take care of themselves falters, and then their ability to take care of people falters too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before I have to say that we've got wonderful responses to answering the quiz question, but we need some questions too. We need your asking us a question of what do you think is safe, what do you think is important. And I have to say also that we have a question from Sisseton actually, so let's do that. 64-year-old woman from Sisseton wants to know the effects of 4 to 6 alcohol drinks per day on person's overall health and longevity. Let's talk about alcohol a little bit. There's some data to say 1 or 2 glasses of wine a day protects. There's some people who are hurt by that. What's your overall take on alcohol, Mike?
I think there is some good data about red wine, and a glass a day used wisely, moderation in all things. You know, I think that's sensible. But 4 to 6 alcoholic drinks a day, I'm going to put my critical care hat back on. It's a real problem, and it affects every organ system. I mean, it absolutely has effect on your brain. Clearly has effect on your left ventricle, on your heart. Depresses your bone marrow. Leads to depression.
But the biggest is...
Let's talk about the liver.
And we can talk about all those things, but the dependency, the personality changes that these people go through is just huge.
And go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I mean, part of it is depressions is obvious, but a lot of times it is that withdrawal. Withdrawal from people, building up walls. You can't talk to them. So I would say to this person who sent in the question, that individual needs help because it may not and probably isn't 4 to 6 a day. It may be more than that.
But this is, I think you're right about that. But here's a really important message for people who are listening here tonight. The idea that if you drink too much, or if you smoke, or if you're overweight, that you can't change those behaviors, that you're trapped in an endless cycle that will just recur and recur and recur. And also that if you've made life choices where you've smoked, for example, that you are now, and you stop, that you're now doomed to live with the consequence of that for the rest of your life. The data is really clear about this. And it's the exact opposite. People can stop smoking. With help, people can stop drinking. We know that's true. We know that physicians who have a nurturing, trusted relationship with patients, physician-patient relationship, PAs, nurses, nurse practitioners, who mention tobacco cessation in every visit, the likelihood that that person will stop smoking goes up significantly. Same thing with alcohol. If you've smoked for a long time and you stop smoking, you're not left at that same basic lung function. Over time, over a 10-year period, 2 things happen. Your exercise tolerance begins to improve, and your risk for lung cancer begins to decrease over time. Right. So the folks who are listening to us to say, I want to live a purposeful life, I want to live a healthy life, but I've made choices already and I'm stuck and I'm trapped. It's not true. No. There's ways forward to choose a healthy life, and it's never too late. Right. Exercise is a whole other one we need to talk about a little bit. Exercise in elderly. We should talk about that a little bit.
And they need to hold us as physicians accountable too, because we fall short on that an awful lot, asking that at every visit. So we have to do.
We need to do better on that. We can talk about issues of obesity, but I would say that the data says that we're not very successful, even at the very best, in losing weight. Once you've gained weight, your body seems to have a reset. But if you're a physically active, heavy person, your risks of early death go down. And I guess the only other thing I wanted to make absolutely sure that we say here is there is huge danger in sleep apnea. And oftentimes that runs with obesity. But it can be reversed with CPAP. And so it's a call out there. If there is evidence of sleep apnea, talk to your doctor about it and get tested.
So here's an interesting data. Piece of data. What % of people who are diagnosed with sleep apnea who go home with a CPAP machine actually use it? What percent?
20%.
15%. Yeah. 85% of the CPAP machines sit on the shelf.
And when you ask them, they'll give you that response. They'll go, you can tell there's that. I want to give you a yes answer, but not very well. I could do better. The answer is they're not using it. But if the spouse bugs them enough, it'll work. And the people who are helped by it, they know it. You can't. They travel with it. They get batteries. They do everything they can to do it.
But I don't think you should give up if you are overweight and obese. Yeah, it is not easy to change, but we have examples that, I mean, I have patients in my practice who are very successful at doing that, and it's making that commitment that you're going to change, and then engaging all kinds of support people around you, whether it's health coaches and it's family and it's a particular diet and exercise, but really committing to that and then having people hold you accountable.
But you've got to do the exercise.
Right.
Kevin lost 40 pounds.
Yeah.
He's down and maintaining.
Yeah.
70 years. Oh, we're going to go to this. Exercise, exercise, exercise. I did that already, didn't I? We cannot emphasize the importance enough. But once you start a routine, you may find it difficult to stay committed and interested enough to continue. Some of us have found motivation in the thrill of victory.
Last year I did the 800 and the 1500, and that was my first time running after not running for 30 years, and qualified for nationals. And so then in July of this year I was in Minneapolis for the nationals, placed 7th in both of those events.
I was introduced to it by a friend 3 years ago. My boyfriend's family has been in it for several years. I had never heard of Senior Olympics.
There's a couple meets in the state where you could go at about age 47 because they go from 40 to 50. And so I always did those 2 meets. I was one of those guys that was anxiously waiting to turn 50. People always used to kind of laugh at me, but I said, yeah, I can't wait because then I can do it full time.
Now I throw the shot put, the discus, the hammer, the javelin, once in a while the softball. And I high jumped for a while, and then I had knee surgery 6 years ago, a knee replacement, and I decided last year to get back in high jump, and I did it this year. Not very high anymore, but I did it.
I just entered the new age group, the 85 to 89, and my time was still good enough to set a new state record in that age group.
Did go to nationals this year in Minneapolis. Amazing. It was an eye-opener. There is so many fantastic athletes from 50 to 100 years old.
Running has always been my passion. I ran junior high, high school, college, and then took 30 years off, married, had the kids, and so devoted my time to them. And then when we heard about the Senior Olympics last year and that it was actually track, I love track. I know you can go out and do 5Ks, do marathons, but track is really my passion.
Some people are real competitive, and there's some who come here for the social part of it, but it's, you know, come on out. There's a lot of people, you don't have to be super fit, but I guarantee if you come out and start doing it, you kind of get addicted and you will get in better shape.
When I get my annual checkup, the doctor always says that the good cholesterol highly outweighs the bad cholesterol, and it's all because of the exercise.
My mom, she actually last year at our city games, or this year at our city games, she did the beanbag, and she's 79. It's like, come on, Mom. And she's the first one that will tell you, you know, I'm not a competitor. You know, you have to have losers to have winners. But she competed, and she was excited and wants to do it some more.
It's just for fun. Just go out and have fun. It doesn't make any difference if you're last place, you know, or if you're not very good. You've got to start somewhere, and it's just going to keep you more active, out of that rocking chair.
Competing does keep you young, and it keeps you moving, and you know, you're not, instead of sitting and watching TV, we're out working out.
Come out and try it. You don't have to be great. It's a lot of fun doing it. And there's always somebody around in whatever event to be willing to show you what to do.
When I was 57, I had a neighbor that had just come back from a doctor's appointment. And he was overweight, his knees were bad, and he was on quite a bit of medication. And he told me that the doctor told him he needed to get some more exercise and change his diet somewhat. And after that, I thought about that, and I was reasonably healthy then, and I thought, what would happen if a person did that before you have health problems?
Well, that was a
Makes you
It was
feel
a
good, doesn't it?
great interview. Jay Van Duke, our producer, went to Aberdeen and took in the Senior Olympics this year. And
You know, all these senior guys look a lot younger than
they
me.
do, don't they? No.
What is
But
this?
you guys look really good for your age.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah, you old guys look okay.
yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Jekyll.
So
Anyway.
we're gonna take some questions. I love the fact that they are active and the competition got them going. I think that's it. You know, if that would, and the friendships that they've developed along the way. California just passed a physician-assisted suicide. Do the doctors see this coming to South Dakota anytime soon? That's an interesting question. And of course, you were on the ethics show that we did a year ago. But I'd ask either one of you your comment about physician-assisted suicide in South Dakota.
Well, I mean, I don't think it comes to South Dakota anytime soon. As you know, Rick, I mean, I'm representing Avera, you know, and of course, as a Catholic entity, you know, we could not support that, consistent with the directives of the Catholic Church. So, and I think that it is just going to be a long time before we see it here in South Dakota.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Any other comment, Mike?
No, except that, I mean, I think it's a real topic, again, from a physician who works in the ICU. What do you do at end of life? And I'm going to do that old political thing of spinning the question the way I want to so I can talk about what I really want to talk about.
Yeah, spin it away.
Which is, if you live a life of purpose and of quality, I think there will be less, maybe I'm naive, but I think there'll be less interest and need in physician-assisted suicide. Which doesn't mean that at the end of life, and here I'm now back with my critical care hat, we have to do a better job as critical care physicians of making sure that people and their families are listened to, and that we really provide absolute quality control of pain and symptoms. That's why, we talked about this before,
Right.
Hospice is so important.
Right.
Everyone went out for hospice, but it is, palliative care and hospice are so crucial here to help people live at the end of their life with as much grace and quality and vibrancy as they possibly can. And then suicide, you know, physician-assisted suicide becomes a little bit less of an issue. Right. So what's my shout out? My shout out is to hospice.
Right. We have a patient who is dying and is suffering. And at the hospice meeting on Tuesday, we had a long conversation, all of us in the room, about the fact that none of us can handle the idea of the intent of helping them commit suicide. But we don't have any problem with it turning up that pain medicine if they're suffering.
Right. I mean,
there it is.
Our first charge is to relieve pain and suffering, as Mike said. And in the course of doing that, you know, you may shorten someone's life, but you know, so be it. Yeah.
But the intent is different.
Right.
But so be it, as long as you've had a really open and honest conversation with family and with the patient when you can, about what we together are doing here as you approach the end of your life. And that gets back to this whole business of what we do, what is really a vocation and a mission.
Yeah.
It's not this technical thing.
Yeah, those are
of course
pretty
it is.
sacred conversations.
It is.
Yeah. Those are
and
very.
we're really lucky to have them.
Right.
Yeah, we are.
You know,
Indeed.
to be invited into those kind of conversations is just an enormous gift. And a lot of us don't do them really well.
No,
so
but some do.
That's a longer answer than you wanted to that question.
You've been it just the way you wanted it.
Well,
Mike.
thanks.
That
All right,
was
anyway.
79-year-old man from Sturgis comments that he is weak and has trouble exercising. Please suggest some exercise to help his strength. I want to give you a story. A patient of mine says, I'm walking 2 miles a day, 1 mile a day. I'm doing great until about a month ago, and I'm losing my strength. And I can't do it. It just happened. And then, of course, in the last 2 weeks, I'm getting chin pain and kind of a facial pain whenever I exert myself, and it goes away when I rest. So she got her stress test this morning. And so we get an angiogram. There's a time you listen to your body. This man, if he hasn't been exercising, of course he's going to have. My producer said, "What's happening to her?" And the answer is, "I'm afraid she's having coronary disease, and we need to be tested." Sure. It was a clue. Sure. She needed to talk to her doctor, and she did.
Sure. I think this particular case, though, what the gentleman's asking, Rick, is you know, often as especially men, you know, we think, I got an exercise, I've got to lift weights, you know, heavy weights and that type of thing. And really, you know, if you haven't been exercising for some time, it just may be something as simple as walk, doing some stretching type of things, lightweight, and it may be something as light as a hammer, right, to start with. So you start small and then you gradually increase. Okay. My wife is working with a bunch of folks in Flanders doing Tabata. Do you know Tabata?
No, I've never heard of Tabata.
Well, I didn't either.
You get on this wood thing.
But
I was going to go down the hill.
You know, you do these burpee things where you get down and you're just jumping up and down and you're raising. You know, dang near killed me. I'm telling you. But but you know, what it demonstrated to me was how out of shape I was. Right. So you got to start slow and
I can't emphasize that enough. People will come in and they'll have plantar fasciitis because they're really overdoing it. They'll come in and their knee will be hurting them. They've overdone it. They're going to stop running now. I mean, I think we have to be very careful of when we decide at 79 to start exercising, do it slowly, little at a time, gradually, over a 6-month period of time, gradually increase it to tolerance. Walking is a wonderful way to get started.
Yeah, and here's another really important thing, I think, and you alluded to it, and that is, you know, pick an age, 65, whatever. If you're going to begin an exercise program of some sort, I really think it's important to go see your health provider, PA, nurse practitioner, physician, whoever that person may be, to say, hey, I'm thinking about changing my life here a little bit, and I'm actually going to start exercising. Is that okay? Let's just do some basic kind of things to make sure that I don't have a problem.
Right.
Because this question about, you know, I'm weak and is it because he hasn't been exercising? Or are there other things that,
anemia and
or whatever the case may be? So for this question, for this person, I'm saying, yeah, I think start low, start slow, but you need to see your healthcare provider first to go over that. Here's another thing, by the way. I don't think you do well. The data is real clear. If you have not exercised routinely before and now you're starting a new program, if you do it alone, it won't work. You need to find a support system to help you do that. Avera Fitness Center, perfect example. The YMCA, they all have programs to help folks like this, both assess their ability and map out a program and a plan.
A walking program.
Yeah, and I really think it's important to do both of those things.
Right, a walking group. What do they call those? There's a name for it.
Mall walkers, man.
Moi? No,
mall walkers. You go up to, you know, what's...
But there's a word called moi or something that is a group. But also, tell me about your mother.
Oh, yeah. So this is a great story. It is a great story. So there's really interesting and good data about, this gets back to, it's never too late.
Right.
You know, this idea for those who are listening and paying attention to this tonight, well, I'm 70 and I'm overweight and I drink and my life is over and what's the point? The data doesn't support that. I've already talked about that. And it doesn't support it either in terms of resistance training at elderly ages. And when I say resistance training, I'm talking weights.
Yeah.
Rubber bands, et cetera, right? The data is really clear in terms of women, studies looked at women over the age of 85 who had never lifted weights before. And everyone said, you know, forget it. If they start lifting weights, they're not going to gain anything back. They're going to hurt themselves. Didn't turn out to be what happened. What happened was, with approval of their physician, and in partnership with trainers and all the rest of them, not a lot, started lifting weights, and they gained back significant muscle mass and strength and sense of well-being. My mother, I took that data to my mother at age 85. She just had her 95th birthday last week.
And she's?
And I said to my mother at age 85, you know, Mom, I think you really need to start lifting weights, and I think you need to get a personal trainer. And she said, are you out of your head? You know, and I said, no, I'm serious about this. And I said, here's why, I'm going to show you the data and all the rest. So she started lifting weights at age 85. 2 years ago, she called me one night and said, hey, guess what I did? Now she's 93. Hey, guess what I did today? And I said, what's that? She said, I got myself a personal trainer. At age 93, still lifting weights, got a personal trainer. 2 weeks ago, was at the Jersey Shore with my sisters and went swimming in the ocean at age 95.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that great?
It really kind of explains why he's a crazy bike rider.
Yeah,
he's related to his mother.
Exactly.
That's true most of the time.
Yeah.
So here is this is Well, South Dakota. This is a great place to go. It has all sorts of information about wellness. Go and then look at also, so this is a site from Dakota Care Insurance Company. They figure, if you want to be selfish about it, if people are staying healthy and exercising, they won't need as much insurance or spend as much insurance money. It saves money. It's a great idea. And we love Dakota Care's wellness. And here's another one, Better Health. So look at those sites, go through them, see if you can glean any good information. We have a question about hurt her knee, has limited movement. What can she do to continue exercising? I like the idea of a pool, but the problem with a pool is you can't do it much. I do think going to physical therapy and finding out what to do with their advice. You guys have any comments about that?
I agree with that too. You know, I mean, there's when you say fall and hurt your knee, there's lots of things that can happen, and most of them are minor, but sometimes they can be major. So I agree, starting out with therapy is a good idea.
Right, and of course, why is she falling? Make sure you go to your doctor and figure out why. Maybe you're on too much blood pressure medicine.
And there's limited movement and there's limited movement. Does she have some swelling and that's the issue? Or has she torn her meniscus and she's got a little flap that's locking up her knee and she can't use it because she's got a meniscus that needs to be repaired?
Yeah.
So this gets back to don't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
There's a team of people who can help you with this.
70-year-old woman from Madison knows exercise is good for you, but she has arthritis in her spine and her neck, and it gets worse even with just long walks. Is there any advice that the doctors have to help get it going?
You don't have to walk to exercise, you know, so, I mean, yeah, it's ideal, but if you're very immobile, you can still do just kind of passive range of motion exercises, just stretching type of things. A little resistance sometimes is helpful.
Push against?
Right, push against the resistance. That helps to stretch muscles. Resistance bands, those kinds of things. So there are definitely things that can do, and actually physical therapists are very good at helping that as well as trainers.
You don't have to have a prescription to go to the physical therapy.
Right.
Go to a physical therapist that's near you and ask their advice. Go to a wellness program and ask for a personal trainer. And I do like walking, and I can tell you also that there's a time when there's a certain amount of pain that you have to go through before you gain. So I wouldn't give up. I really like the idea of walking. 79-year-old woman, I have an artery in my brain that's only working 50%. Is that something serious that needs treatment? Is there something that can be done with a carotid artery that's 50% blocked?
There's the critical,
Here's the
critical care guy right there.
Pretty good. 50% is not
at all.
Not at all.
I mean, we don't get anxious until it's 90%.
90%,
yeah, 90 or 95.
Yeah, but you know what would interest me is how does she know that?
Because she's gone to those ultrasound screening tests.
Well, I wonder if that's what happened, or if there was an event that led her to have a diagnostic study, a test. I've learned a long time ago to be careful about answering these questions, because if you make it sound too simple, because people have 50% occlusion. How does she exactly know that?
Yeah, there's something
The easy answer is 50% occlusion. We don't worry a lot about.
We do not.
But how does she happen to know that? I would love to ask her that question.
Yeah,
but anyways.
We've got about no further seconds to discuss this, but we're going to talk later. After the show, go to the internet site. And now for the winner of tonight's Prairie Doc Quiz question. Of the following lifestyle decisions, which is the most effective in enhancing longevity? A, the proper low carbohydrate diet. That's a good idea. B, everyday exercise. That's the answer. And daily vitamin D, that's still a good idea. Do you agree daily exercise is
Absolutely.
Sure. Absolutely. The shocking answer is B, everyday exercise. It is Judy Gilbertson from Lake Wilson, Minnesota, who correctly answered our question. Thank you, Judy, for your answer. The book will be in the mail to you soon. We'll be right back after this.
All around town, from stores to playgrounds, babies are on the move. And there are diseases that are on the move too. And some of these spread easily. To best protect him from 14 serious diseases by the time he turns 2 years old, vaccinate him according to the recommended schedule, so he can go on about his business and you can have peace of mind. For more reasons to vaccinate, talk to your child's doctor or go to cdc.gov/vaccines.
A 50-something-year-old healthy, thin, non-smoker exerciser was discussed in our hospice meeting the other day as his metastatic brain cancer was progressing and he was coming close to death. He had lived a perfect lifestyle, even seen his doctor regularly, and yet he was dying. Of course, a healthy lifestyle gives everyone a better chance for living a long life, but is no guarantee. The original Blue Zone research about longevity, marked by circles in blue on a map, was on the island of Sardinia, where more people survived into their 90s and even past 100 years of age in certain areas of the island. This was first published in Experimental Gerontology in 2004, and since this original real scientific research, the words blue zone have been used to define areas of the world where people live longer. After having made first-hand observations of elderly people in areas of Japan, Costa Rica, Greece, California, Dan Buettner, a college graduate, bicyclist, explorer, and professional fundraiser, wrote the book Blue Zones: Lessons for Living Longer from the People Who've Lived the Longest. There he states the key to living long comes from performing daily moderate exercise, eating a lower calorie plant-based diet, being connected to family and community, having spiritual and purpose-driven goals, and avoiding tobacco smoke. He's sold a lot of books. Although not scientifically based or proven by Buettner, these general principles for enhancing health are generally supported by other more rigorous scientific data. Still, I'm a bit of a skeptic. Every day there seems another study that advises the opposite of what we used to think. Eat less salt, now more. Don't eat butter, now eat butter. Don't exercise too much, now more. Don't drink alcohol, now drink a glass of red, not white wine every day, and so on. I like the old adage that's back, do everything in moderation, even taking advice about living longer. No question, I have lifestyle advice fatigue. I presented some of this information to our hospice committee yesterday, just after discussing cases of dying patients. And the blue zone advice sounded pretty hollow to this group of caregivers who are providing for individuals, not populations. Personally, I'm driven to try to walk a mile a day, run 3 days a week, avoid excessive calories, stay connected to my family, my friends, my faith, and to enjoy my work trying to help people with medical problems. Maybe I'll live longer, and maybe I won't. But I don't do any of these things to live longer. I do them because they help me feel good and give me meaning. Well, I sincerely want to thank our fantastic guests tonight. I don't remember a more fun on a show. Michael Heisler and Tad Jacobs for volunteering to help with tonight's show. And thank you all at home. Our hope is that you've come away from this discussion thinking about what you might do, even if it's a small thing, to improve the length and quality of your life. So from all of us here at On Call with the Prairie Doc, until next time, stay healthy out there, people.
Windows to your soul. They work hard, get tired, need rest and care. They can be injured or diseased just like any other part of your body. Eye health. Next time on Call with the Prairie Doc.
And welcome to On Call After Hours, where we answer the questions we weren't able to get to during the broadcast portion of our show. All of your questions are important to us, and we want to answer as many as we can for you. So the first question is a female from Pickstown. How do you get your spouse to get motivated to exercise? I mean, that's it, isn't it, really? How do we get our partners, or how do we get ourselves? How do we motivate people to exercise, Tad?
Well, we were just talking about that a bit ago, but I do think, you know, making it a family effort really, really helps a lot. I mean, when you're motivated, you're surrounded by other people that are trying to help you, that really makes a difference. I talked about my wife doing Tabata. She does that with about 8 other of her friends in town, and they meet every morning to do it, and so that really helps when you do it as a group.
I think doing it as a group, doing it as a family,
yeah.
People don't understand the value of how much it makes you feel better.
Right.
I mean, it takes a while to get there, but once you've done it for like about 3 months, you're addicted because you know how much better you feel.
Right, and if you miss it, you know that you're going to feel lousy, you know, for a few days until you get back into it.
Well, there's this really cool stuff called endorphins.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You know, the opiate receptor binders. And they absolutely go up when you exercise, as does cortisol, as does growth hormone, and as does serotonin. And they all give you a great high.
Yep.
It just makes you feel better. They talk about the exercise high. It's real, but it may not be, oh, now I'm feeling a rush. It isn't a rush thing. It's a real deal.
Absolutely.
A 42-year-old man from Brookings is on one of the special diet programs run by the big health systems. He's losing weight, but worries about the high protein diet on his health. He's concerned about keeping the weight off after he goes back to real food.
Hey, this is run by one of the big health systems, so I'm not answering this one.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, I'll tell you. I actually participated in one of those programs by the health system. Lost about 35 pounds here last year. I've gained about 15 of that back. But I'll tell you that these programs that are run, it should be monitored by someone who really is a health coach who understands the ramifications. If depending on your age and if you don't have other pre-existing kidney disease, probably the protein diet is not going to be a big problem for them. I think it is a gradual reintroduction of food at the end of when you finally reached your goal. But you know, it is a lifestyle change. I mean, you know, you've got to commit to the ongoing exercise. You got to commit to the changes that you make in your diet. That doesn't mean that it's as restrictive as it is while you're in the program. It's not something you can just do and say, okay, no, I'm done with it, because you will gain your weight.
It'll be an exercise in futility.
Right. It'll be
the best time to buy a treadmill or a rowing machine is February 1st.
Why is that?
Because everybody got them as a New Year, commitment.
Right.
Yeah.
They went out and spent a lot of money, and they're going to change their life, and 2 weeks afterwards, they're back to the old patterns.
Right.
It's hard to change patterns in fundamental ways. Right. So you're exactly right. And we get back to this idea of community. If you do it by yourself, you're not going to do real well. But build a system around you to help you with this stuff.
I like the idea of a diet with lower carbohydrates and know that proteins are okay. These programs, I think, the biggest risk with them is that it isn't really the protein that's so hard, unless you've got kidney problems. You don't want to do it if you're leaking protein in your kidneys. But the problem with it is that you've got, what you really need to do is to change that lifestyle, as you say.
Right.
And
but here, here's the most important thing on this. This 42-year-old person is committed and motivated enough that he's already realized that he's got to do something. So the awareness is already there, the commitment is already there, the tenacity and the self-discipline to get out and do something is already. He's got 3 of the 4 things already in hand.
Right. So
he's just one more little step and he's on his way. But this is actually good stuff.
The only thing that one of the things that in my research on obesity is it was from an article in the New England Journal of Medicine that sticks in my mind, or actually there was 2 articles, and that is, which diet works best, a low carbohydrate protein diet or a low calorie, low fat diet? And the answer is easy. The low carbohydrate protein diet really works. People like it, they lose more weight, they feel good, they actually lose weight, but after a year, everybody regains the weight. And in the very best programs, the TOPS and the weight loss, 30% will lose weight in the program. And of the 30% more will keep it off a year. And of those 30% of 30%, which is like 10%, all of those have regained it in 5 years. But it's the being in shape when you're heavy is the most important thing. Is people who are in shape, whether they're heavy or they're skinny, live a normal length of life. They have a normal life. And so I think the most important thing is that exercise. And if you want to do those programs and lose weight, okay. But I don't push it so much as I push the exercise. I think that's the huge. Now, do you guys disagree with me?
No, I agree with you completely.
I do.
Yeah.
I do as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
lose weight. These programs will get you started. The Kevin that was on our show he used that program and it helped him lose weight. But then he got into this exercise and he's just going crazy with it.
You know, it kind of gives you at least a point of seeing what is it like, because you know sometimes some of our patients have gained so much weight that they have forgotten what it's like to be thin or to be
thinner.
Or thinner,
you know,
right?
Rather than thin.
Right, exactly. And so getting back to that point where it's like, oh, I can do this, and I feel so much better. So, yeah.
50-pound sack of salt.
Yeah, off you. Yeah.
Off of you. I mean, do you ever carry a bag of salt? Do you ever carry 2 bags of salt into your...
Yeah, and we as physicians, don't talk about the taboo subjects. So what are the other advantages of really losing weight and getting fit again? I don't mean being a skinny little athlete, but getting fit again. Well, first of all, you have more energy every day. Second of all, you really sleep better. And third of all, your love life gets better almost predictably.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and and let's just be honest,
That's an important thing.
It is an important thing in the well-being of a person's life and living well. And when you're fit and you're a bit more in shape, your love life gets better. And terrific, go for it.
Reduces stress too, which plays into that whole piece, libido.
So all good stuff.
Have you guys seen the YouTube 23.5? Have you seen that? Go to YouTube and look up 23.5. It's well watched and well videoed. It is an amazing example about all the advantages of exercise, and it just powerful, powerful stuff. Now, Mike, you wanted to have...
The flip side of that, by the way, is another video called Super Size Me.
Oh, yeah?
Do you guys know about this?
No.
Where a guy, healthy guy, 37, whatever he is, makes a commitment to do nothing but eat. I'm not going to name a company. I'm simply going to say fast food. For 30 straight days, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and when he drove into the window, if the person in the window says, would you like to be supersized, he had to say yes. And it's the story of what happens to him and his relationship and his health over a 30-day window.
And what happened?
He gets really, really sick.
I bet he does.
And he gets fatty infiltrated liver and gains weight, and his love life goes out the door, and he really feels terrible.
Surely.
Right. So it gets back to your point. All things in moderation. Use some common sense here.
Yeah, common sense. And you said that you wanted a comment about prevention.
Yeah, so, okay, now I'm putting back
Great
on
topic.
my critical care.
Prevention, let's say.
Care. Okay, so here's the really short part about prevention, and I get back to this business of, when you're in the ICU and you do rounds, the 2 times where you really feel your heart ache, first and foremost, young people. The young person, for whatever reason they're there.
I see you, that's
and
terrible.
So that goes without saying. The other one is when you look at a person in that bed and you see their family around the bed, shocked, stunned, afraid, grieving, and you realize they didn't ever have to be there. That the issue that bought them that ICU bed was 100% preventable if they had simply done routine, simple things. For example, real quick, 145,000 new cases of colon cancer in this country every year. 50,000 people die from it. We know that with simple routine prevention, and maybe not so simple, colonoscopy isn't the simplest thing in the world, it's a preventable entity. And yet we still lose 50,000 people a year.
60% of the people over 50 don't
even have, and I end up taking care of those folks because now metastatic, obstructed renal failure, septic, unresponsive. It never had to happen, and they're usually 42 years old. So that's one. Second one, real quick, skin cancer. More skin cancer every year in the United States than breast cancer and prostate cancer and lung cancer combined, skin cancer. We know it's absolutely preventable. Even melanoma, which they call the silent killer for a reason. What % of people in this country properly wear screen, clothes, hats, etc.? What %, knowing that it's absolutely preventable, that you won't end up in the ICU with metastatic melanoma, with multiple brain lesions at age 60 or 43, whatever, unable to talk to your kids?
20%.
Well,
Not bad.
I'm saying 100% of my family
Does or does not?
Does.
Okay, well, that's
we wear.
That's because you're you and
Yeah,
you're crazy.
You're you.
I'm crazy.
17%.
17%.
17%. Even though we know. You know what will change that? If you have somebody you really love who ends up dying of melanoma.
Yeah, right.
From that moment on, everybody you know wears sunscreen. So my point is that in order to live a life well, you actually have to be alive.
It's nice being alive
You
to
have
be
to
able
be
to do
here.
that.
And I'll just throw out,
yeah.
Rick, you know, all the preventative screenings, immunizations, all those things are all important that can help. So if you don't have a primary care provider, get one because they can help keep track of that for you.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Thank you both for being here. Wonderful
bet.
show.
Great.
And thank you for joining us on our website. We appreciate all of your questions and the opportunity to answer them. Until next time, stay healthy out there, people.
Funding for the On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided in part by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On Call Television as it continues to open doors for important medical information.
And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota.
Additional funding is provided by
Aberdeen Asthma and Allergy,
Brookings Health System,
Dakota Allergy and Asthma,
Dakota Care,
Dakota Dermatology,
the Orthopedic Institute,
Physicians Care Sanford Clinic Community Service Committee,
and Swiftel Communications.
Closed captioning for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided by the generous support of
Avera, Brookings Health System,
and Fishback Financial Corporation.